Okay, thank you very much, Matusz. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon. It's great to be here, and welcome to the architectural necromancy talk, or how the Thaumaturge brought a razed city to life. Since the Thaumaturge, I'll speak about the game briefly in a moment, but since the Thaumaturge is a narrative-driven role-playing game, I just want to, have a quick disclaimer. We won't have any spoilers in this presentation, so if any of you haven't played the game and want to do so, you're safe. By the way, how many people have played the Thaumaturge here? One. All right, 2 people. Okay, that's still good. All right, so just before we start, some quick info about me. Like Matusz already said, my name is Butkiewicz. I'm a senior level designer at Fool's Theory. I've been making games since 2015 and then working professionally since 2018. I also taught level design from 2022 until this year. And some of my projects include The Wizard's Dark Times, which is a VR title, The Thaumaturge, and now I'm working on The Witcher remake also as a level designer. All right, so without further, one more slide of info. So this is a quick table of contents, what the presentation will be about. First, I'm going to give you a quick rundown about what the Thaumaturge is and what the setting is. Then we will talk about the existing landmarks that you can still find in Warsaw, those that we depicted in the game. Then I'll move on to the destroyed landmarks that we've rebuilt in the game. And then finally, hopefully we'll have time for a bonus round of anecdotes, some assorted references, and some miscellaneous points of interest from the game. And then at the end, Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please keep them for the end. All right, time and setting. So the Thaumaturge, it's a narrative-driven role-playing game. You play as Wiktor Szulski, who is the titular Thaumaturge. Thaumaturgy, the name comes from Greek thauma, which means miracle. So thaumaturges are kind of understood to be miracle workers, miracle makers. Basically, how thaumaturgy works is that thaumaturges are especially attuned to human emotion, so they are able to perceive and read people's emotions much more than regular people. They also have they can read emotional connections to objects. So like, let's say that a thaumaturge discovers a crime scene. They're not detectives, by the way. Wiktor Szulski is not a detective. This is just an example. If Wiktor happened upon, say, a crime scene, and I don't know, he found the murder weapon, right? By picking up that weapon, he would be able to detect, to read the emotions of both, say, like the killer and the victim. What they felt, what their thoughts are or motivations, stuff like that. And then he can, being an intelligent character, he can piece them together and use the information for his own ends. So Warszawa, 1905, Warsaw. At that time in 1905, Warsaw was, the entire polity known as the Kingdom of Poland, that's what it was called then, was a Russian province, an imperial Russian province. And well, like the slide says, it was a city of contrasts, secrets, and struggle. So the contrasts and struggle are, for people who are interested in history, I assume fairly obvious given the year. But a quick explanation. 1905 was the year of the first revolution in the Russian Empire. Worker and socialist movements rose in the provinces of the empire, Warsaw included, just driven by the ever-growing power and hunger of the ruling classes, both aristocrats and bourgeois. So the contrasts are very visible, even in the game, right? You can go to downtown or the center of Warsaw and see beautiful townhouses and manors, hotels, parks, places like that. But then these districts border ones like Powiśle, for instance, which is one of the districts in the game, and it's basically a working class slum. There's mud everywhere, shanty towns, stuff like that. So that's kind of this backdrop against which the game is taking place. And then secrets, well, as most big cities, Warsaw has its fair share of organizations, be they secretive or public, and they're all vying for power. You have different kinds of organizations like, okay, no spoilers. But of course, like I mentioned just a second ago, you're going to meet like socialist groups or say, anti-Thaumaturge groups as well, aristocrats and others. So, you know. All right. Let's move on to the existing landmarks that we depicted in the game. First up, we have the St. Mary Magdalene Orthodox Church. By the way, all of the names that are at the top of the slide, these are the names we use in the game. The official names of these locations may differ, such as this one. Like, the official name is much longer than that, but that's just an off-topic. So here you can see the screenshot from the game on the left and a modern photography to the right. As you can see, there are just a few differences. The most noticeable one, I would say, would be, aside from like the surrounding greenery, would be the lack of ribs on the domes at the roof. And that can be explained when we look at the references that we used. 1 second, I'm going to zoom in. So if we look at this old photograph, it's still from the Russian rule period. You can see that back then the cathedral actually had, the domes were ribbed, right? So that's the way we wanted to depict it in the game. Of course, we could, there aren't an infinite number of references to use from that time, so we had to use modern references a lot. So you can see, speaking of modern references, an aerial view of the cathedral from today. As you can see, the domes lack the ribs. They were, I assume they were, the roof was gone during the war, so they reconstructed it without them. As for the location of the actual cathedral, here you can see a plan. I'll zoom in just slightly closer. Right. So here on the center of the screen, you can see the city plan of Warsaw. I believe it was from 1898. And this is the district of Praga, which was a working class district mostly on the east bank of the Vistula River. And you can see this miniature cathedral here with a park surrounding it. So for the purposes of the game, we moved it just slightly, just 1 block from where it is found today. You know, we needed to condense these districts just for the purpose of the game. Like, optimization being one of them, but also like you don't want like filler locations, right? You want all of your stuff to be more or less within reasonable distance of each other. All right, and there's one video that I want to show you. And it is a reference that I used from the interior of the cathedral, because you can find a virtual tour of the cathedral online. And I'll just let it play. So yeah, you can walk all around the building to these different spots, look around. It's all 360 photography. You can see all the details, both like architectural and interior design. So we used this video a lot when designing the interior of the cathedral. All right, that's the video. So yeah, you can see all that. And let me move on to the actual interior of the cathedral. 1 second, I think it's going to be, yeah, this is the presentation. So starting with an overview shot of the cathedral, this isn't normal gameplay, right? This is a shot I took specifically for this presentation. You can see it in cutscenes like that, more or less. So as you can see, we more or less reconstructed the cathedral like 1-to-1, working off of these references. Of course, the coloring is different because our art style is much different than like regular lighting. We went more for these desaturated dark tones, kind of colder temperature, visually speaking. You know, it supports the story we're trying to tell. So that was the reason behind that. But in terms of regular gameplay presentation, this is what the location would look like. So I was one of the people in charge of actually building this interior. So I can tell you that when I was making the blockout is something, let's say, you know how architects would build like simple models before any work is started to like show it off to the client? Well, blockouts are kind of like that. I use very simple geometrical shapes just to give a feel of what a space looks like. They're only like, you know, in gray or white, just so we can run around and see if the place feels right before we do any serious work on it. So when I was building the blockout for the cathedral, I basically kept going back and kept going back to that 360 video that you just saw. All right, let's move on. Okay, next up, we have the Nożyk Synagogue. The Nożyk Synagogue, I believe, was the only synagogue that survived the Second World War. Once again, you can see a screenshot of it on the left from the game, and there is a picture on the right. It still stands today in Warsaw, in the district of Mirów, which in the past was well, kind of like, let's say, a Jewish quarter of the city. So in terms of references, first of all, you can once again see the same city plan. The orange would be the district of Mirów, or Grzybów it was also called. So you can see that for the purpose of the game, once again, we moved the building just slightly from its actual location. We basically moved it to the other side of the square that it's located in, right? Because our video game is isometric, so that's supported composition in this case. As for the references, let me zoom in once again. So, here we have, first of all, the black and white photography. You can see the front of the building just after or during the end years of the war. You can see that it has been, demolished. I mean, the building itself still stands, but you basically see that it's an unused ruin. But we know that, thanks to this photograph just above it, we know that it was reconstructed just after the war. This is a photo from 1956, and it shows the interior of the synagogue as well as its rabbi at that time. So, and then to the right we have more modern pictures, and if you look at both the black and white photo and the color one next to it, we can see that barely anything has changed since the synagogue was reconstructed, or renovated, let's say. So I'd say it would stand to logic that after the war they would try to rebuild it as faithfully as possible. Unfortunately, we couldn't find any pre-war references from inside the cathedral, so we just had to go with what we have today, right? And thankfully we know that it was the way it was rebuilt just after. So yeah, you can see some screenshots here, and then more of an aerial view right here. And I'll move on to the next slide. So the final look. Once again, we have an overview shot. So all the stuff I said earlier still holds up, colder, darker colors than what it would look like normally. But more or less, it's the same building, right? There we have more regular gameplay shots from Victor running around and exploring. We have these elevated balconies with the archway underneath, and here the central part of the synagogue. All right. Then thirdly, we have the Powązki Cemetery. The Powązki Cemetery is in the time of the game, it was a cemetery near the very edge of Warsaw. It's northwest from the center, and it was it's quite an old cemetery at this point. I would say it's easily 300, maybe 400 years old. And during the events of the game, it was mostly a Catholic cemetery, but sections of it were also kind of, let's say, fenced off and then given to other believers of other religions. It also had an evangelical, I believe, or some form of Protestant. Maybe it wasn't evangelical. I don't remember right now. It had a Protestant section as well as a Jewish section and a very small Muslim section. So a lot. It kind of, if you look at the Powązki Cemetery, it kind of shows how Warsaw was a cosmopolitan city at that time, right? You would find people from all over the world, from the west, from the east, of all religions, etc. So, another quick fact about this: the cemetery has a bunch of different gates that lead to it. Not all of them exist. Not all the original gates still exist. So we had a lot of like wiggle room with placing our own. In case of the gate pictured in the photograph here to the right, the distance between the location, if you look at like the city map in the game, of this gate and the gate in the photograph, the difference is once again maybe just about 100 to 200 meters. So I was really happy that we were able to try to place these locations as close to real life as possible. So yeah, once again we have references. I won't be zooming in this time because I say they're fairly legible. So if you look at these photos were taken around, I think, November, because when we were searching for references, we knew that the game is set in autumn of 1905, so we were looking for autumn references mostly. So once again, you can see even these references here, right? The cool colors, you can tell that it's cold out. You get really nice pictures of these headstones here and some mausoleums. And then at the top, you can see a candle lit, right? Because I don't know if it's customary in Slovakia as well, but in Poland on All Hallows Day, people all visit the graves and light candles on their close relatives and families' graves, and then in the night you can see this, huge gleam on the night sky from the cemeteries. So we wanted to do some of that as well, even though it's only, I think, September in the game. So okay, I'll zoom in this time. Okay, quick overview shot as usual. So we have the night sky, and we have all of these headstones and the mausoleums that we had in the references, as well as, I'm not sure if you can tell in this lighting here, but there's also candles lit around the graves. This is an early morning shot, and you can also see not just like the graves and the mud and everything, but also you can see a vendor selling flowers, right? That's something you would normally see at a graveyard. And then just a few more night shots from a regular gameplay camera. Okay, I think this is our final existing landmark, and it's the Różycki Bazaar. Here you can see, these aren't exactly the same place pictured, as on the left we have the rear gate for the bazaar, and on the right is a photo of the front gate as it looks today. So they're kind of on the opposite ends of the bazaar, but you will see the front gate in the references as well. So what the Różycki Bazaar is, it was a bazaar like in a working class, once again we're back in Praga, it's a working class neighborhood bazaar, and you would find vendors of all sorts there. It was mostly like everyday items and food and other stuff like that. You wouldn't find luxury wares there because for quite a while the Różycki Bazaar was famous for its pickpockets, so people with money wouldn't really go there. Let's move on to the references. So I'll start with this one on the right here. So I really like these photographs because when we were using them, you could see all the types of people that would come to a place like this, right? They were mostly working class people. Like some of the kids I can see don't have shoes on their feet. And you can see like the architecture of the bazaar. It's mostly like sheds and shanties and like very primitive stalls. So it really gave us like a lot. These photographs sell a lot of the character of the place, right? It gives us a lot to work with. Cool fact you can see right here is the gate. This is the front gate, actually. The rear gate will be in the next picture. This is the front gate, and right behind it, you can see this sort of siphon-shaped thing. This was a stall shaped like a bottle of carbonated water, like soda water, and that's one of the first places, if not the first one, in Warsaw, or at least maybe in Praga, where you could get carbonated water. And that stall stood around for a couple of decades before it was taken down because it was in really poor shape by the end. Right, here we have this rear gate that you saw in the screenshot from the game, and once again you can see different kinds of people, both children, adults. You can see the sort of wares that you could find there. There's a bunch of like textiles, and I can see like broomsticks, stuff like that. And also, of course, the beautiful detail on the gate. These kinds of references are invaluable because they always give you, like, you can really flesh out what the location was when it was, or like at what it was at that time, right? Okay, this photo, this is the front gate. As you can see, the, what do you call it? The siphon is no longer there. And curiously enough, you can tell by looking at this picture when it was taken, because I'm not sure if you could make it out in the photo earlier. The rear gate had 2 sets of lettering. It had the Polish one, which you can mostly see, and then the cut-off one in Cyrillic in Russian. So we know that this photo was taken when Germans entered Warsaw in during World War I. I think it was 1914 or 15. I don't remember at this point. And so, of course, when they came in, they would take out destroy all forms of like Russian. What do I say? Of the like Russian supremacy in the city, right? So, for instance, double lettering in both Russian and Polish, they would destroy the Russian one. So once again, you can see really cool details like the fencing in this photo. And the primitive architecture. Oh, and some of my favorite references come from this website. It is a Polish photographer who also colorizes photographs from the past. So these sets mostly come from the 20s and 30s, so they're not really usable in terms of like clothing and architecture, but I think they're still very cool because they sell the spirit of the early modern period, or it's not the early, or like the modern period basically. So even here, these weren't taken, as far as I'm aware, at the Różycki marketplace, but they were taken at some sort of marketplace. So even behind these men who are not dressed for 1905, but let's say like 20s, 30s, you still can see like, somebody in a stall is just selling suits. You can see right here like sleeves and stuff like that. So you can tell that even at a marketplace, you could go and buy a suit. Right? It probably wouldn't be like very good quality. Maybe it would be worn, but that stuff was sold there. I love that kind of stuff. I think it's really cool. And also here, you can see like a horse-drawn cart in the background. So it was maybe the early 20s, or it was maybe a poorer marketplace where cars wouldn't deliver in the 20s and 30s. And I really love details like the guy sitting there with the sewing machine. He was probably like making quick repairs or something like that for his clients. And you can also tell it was taken in a colder month by the dress. All right. I won't go back to the full slides. It'll be faster this way. So final look. Here we have, I'll start with the regular shots this time. So here we have gameplay screenshots, and you can see we recreated this carbonated water stall or stand that was present in the marketplace. It was also one of the symbols of the marketplace for the longest time. We also showed that you could buy some livestock there if you were a resident of Warsaw. Here we have more of an aerial view of the marketplace. You won't be able to see it, but the rear gate is visible in it. And all right, here we have a dedicated shot of the rear gate, but seen from from behind, so the lettering is reversed or like mirrored. And then just some more stalls here. Okay, destroyed landmarks. So the first one, I think this is one of the most prominent buildings in the game. This is the Vienna station. The Vienna station was a railway station, the first major railway station in Warsaw. And it was called the Vienna station because this was, if I recall correctly, the westernmost railway station in the Russian Empire. So anybody traveling from the heartland of the empire to the frontier to go to Western Europe would have to go through here. And this is where most travelers would catch their train or like their connecting train from, say, St. Petersburg to Vienna, right? So once again, you can see a screenshot next to a postcard. And I won't zoom. Okay, okay, you can probably make it out. So here are some of the references that we used. Okay, I will zoom in. Right, so once again, we have Zion's photo with the great colorized photographs. So first, this one here shows the platforms behind the railway station with just a few trains present there. And this is a street in front of the railway station. This was taken later because you can tell by the cars. We wouldn't have cars in 1905. And the townhouse, the bright townhouse you can see here, This is also in the game. There is a pub there, the London pub. And as you can see, this was also, maybe you can't tell, but this was also a pub in real life. They sold, like, you can see neons on the roof, like Piwo Żywieckie. Okay, we have some postcards showing the facade of the building. This was the easy part, actually, because we have a lot of references for the outside of the building, including 3D models and like regular physical models built by people. But in terms of the interior, it becomes very problematic. There aren't many references at all of the interior. The most we could find was this second-class waiting room for the the waiting room for the passengers of the second class. So we didn't have a lot to go off when designing the interior. Once again, a quick shot of the platforms and just the location. The location is identical in the game as in the real world. All right. I will once again not zoom in. Final look. So I won't be showing the outside of the building as you saw that in the first screenshot, but here we have no, it's not legible. We also have two types of writing, in Russian and in Polish, above the entrance. Then we have the platforms. We chose to add roofs to the platforms just because it made them that much more visually interesting than just platforms with no roofs. And then, unfortunately, due to lighting, you won't be able to see it. But also the sign here, it says in Russian Warszawa and in Polish as well. Except, the Russian writing there has blood smeared on it because, just shows that how brutal the occupation was at that time. Okay, here we have 3 shots of the interior. First, we have this waiting section. We don't really go into the wings of the railway station. We only get to visit the central hall. So we have this small waiting area here. Then in the central part, there are some ticket booths and few more benches for the passengers. And then in the right-hand side, we have a small restaurant. You can see the curtain there. It was directly this composition was directly taken from this waiting right here, right? You can see here at the very end, there is a restaurant there or something like that, some other sort of establishment serving passengers. So that was a direct reference. All right. So, like I said, this is one of the destroyed landmarks. It no longer exists. It was destroyed during the Second World War, bombarded and then taken apart. Today, in this location, we have the Wisława-Szymborska passage, which is just a footpath for people. But very near to it, we have the central Warsaw railway station. So I guess, the spirit of the railway station is still there, just 100 meters to the west of the original location. Okay, next up we have the Gościnny Dwór Bazaar. Gościnny Dwór means something like hospitable manor. And this was a bazaar. If I recall correctly, this was a type of bazaar. I think there were more built in the Russian Empire, in this character. So this one was located once again in Mirów, which was the Jewish quarter. And it was different than most other bazaars because it already came with indoor and outdoor facilities. So we have the comparison shot here. And then when we move to the references, okay, quick note on the location. We turned it around 180 degrees, so the main entrance no longer points to the north, but to the south. And we moved it once again just a few dozen meters, just so it fits with the rest of the district better. Now for some zoom-in shots of the references. So this one on the right, the sepia one, shows, from a different angle, shows the main entrance from a different angle, and you can see, I said about the indoor facilities, right? The building it was horseshoe-shaped. Maybe I'll show that first. The building was kind of horseshoe-shaped, and in the actual building, you would have shops, storehouses, and you could, people would sell stuff out of those. But then, when you went inside through the main gate into the courtyard, there was an outdoor bazaar there as well. All right. So we have some more references. And yeah, this one wasn't very hard to find references for. People, there's a lot of photos and other media. People built models of it. So this one was, as far as destroyed buildings go, fairly easy to reconstruct. All right, the final look. Sorry, I forgot about that. So once again, an overview shot. We have the interior courtyard. This is the internal part of the main gate. When you go out, you go into the main street. You have these stalls where you can get anything from produce to sweets to primitive furniture, tools, stuff like that. This is another shot of the main entrance from within like regular gameplay. And then we have the exterior. There was also a bazaar outside. I think it was called something like the bazaar behind the Iron Gate, something like that. And then just another shot from indoors, or from the interior courtyard, sorry. Oops. Okay, and you're going to see a pattern in this presentation. The building was destroyed during the Second World War and taken apart during fighting. And today, in its location, we have the Mirovsky Park, named after the district of Mirów, right? And something I didn't say earlier during the synagogue part was that this was more or less the area where the Jewish ghetto was located during wartime. Okay, finally, in the destroyed section, we have the Dolina Szwajcarska Park, which means Swiss Valley Park. And this was a park to the south of the city center in Warsaw. Let me zoom in so you can see the detail. So this was a public park with both like a garden section, and it also had a concert hall. You can see the concert hall on the left there and some of the garden on the right, but it also had, as far as I'm aware, sorry, I'm getting some static, I think. It was just the loud traffic. All right, so here we can see a side-by-side comparison. And if we move on to the next section, it's the references, right? References for the Swiss Valley are so hard to find, I swear. You can still find some of like the exterior. So like here, for instance, you can see that there was a restaurant or some sort of like coffee place outside as well, where they would also host maybe concerts or some other form of entertainment. Here is a shot of the actual concert hall. But a cool thing about this concert hall is that inside, you didn't just get concerts, but there was also this sort of like Warsaw Society of roller skaters. They would actually also use the interior for practice, right, for like meetings when they were roller skating. Unfortunately, it's very hard to find references for the outside facade of this concert hall. Like, this is one of the best ones I could find. All right, so let's move on to the final look in the game. I'll get the overview shot first. Okay, here it is. You can see the concert hall in the background and this restaurant, coffee house type thing on the left there, the wooden one with the roof. As for the detailed shots, we have a better look at the concert hall here with its balconies. This is a better look at the restaurant. And down here we have a zoom up of Victor on top of the balcony. Like, I won't spoil as to why there are so many flags here. If you play the game, you'll get to know. Oh, there's also the interior. My bad, I forgot about that. So, first of all, we're going to have the overview shot right here, taken from just under the ceiling. It's a bit more decorated than what you would see in the references, but like I said, if you play the game, you'll find out why. No spoilers in this presentation. Some more detailed shots here with some people. And this other section. And then we have an upstairs corridor here. There's other rooms, but I won't get into that much detail. And then finally, today we actually still have a park there. It's still called the Swiss Valley Park, or Dolina Szwajcarska, but the concert hall is no longer there. It was destroyed during the war and taken apart. And mostly it's just like this medium to large green area. Okay, it's not a large, it's a medium green area, and there's like a fountain there, right? Okay, that's it for the landmarks. Now for the bonus round. I think we still have just like 5 minutes for this. Okay. I won't get into the anecdotes then. Well, they'll take. I'll do this first. It's visually more interesting. Okay, so first up we have the memorial to the loyalist officers killed during the November Night. This was a Russian memorial. The November Night was the night that the November Uprising took place. The November Uprising was one of the first two major uprisings in under Russian rule. It was in the first half of the 19th century. I want to say the 1830s. I hope my history teacher isn't listening right now. So first, its location was different. It wasn't in the park here on Green Square. It was in front of, I think it's called Pałac Saski, but I may be wrong on that. Anyway, we decided to depict it in its second location on Green Square next to Victor's house, right? You can see the similarity between the screenshot and the postcard. Then we have the Lutheran Holy Trinity Church. It's also next to the memorial, just across the street. It's not really a prominent building in the game. You can only see the exterior, and I think there may be one side quest related to it being a church in its vicinity, but you can't go inside. We tweaked its location just slightly. In real life, this building would be about, I say, 100 meters down the road. Still, very close. Okay, then we have the Kierbeć Bridge. I'm going to zoom in here quickly. So the Kierbeć Bridge is a bridge across the Vistula that leads from the old town to Praga. And it's named after its architect, whose surname was Kierbeć. You have a very similar bridge here in Bratislava today. I saw it while taking a walk earlier. So this is the in-game view from the Praga side during the night. I'm not sure if you can... Okay, the contrast is better on the TV. And here is the view from Powiśle. So you can compare it to the photograph or the postcard, right? And here is a short view from Gierymski's painting. It's called Piaskarze, so the Sandmen, something like that. And I think this is the last one. We have the Praga Hospital. It should be Praga, not Prague. This is I think the first hospital that came up in the district of Praga, the working class district. It was initially a workhouse, so a place where poor people would go to live, and they would be taken care of. Mostly sick people and people with disabilities would live there. It was later turned into a hospital. It was very hard to find original photographs of when the hospital first was built. So here it is depicted in the game on the left-hand side, and this was the first building. Today the hospital is comprised of, I think, about 4 or 5 large buildings, and this original one was in the worst shape, but it's been renovated in the last 5 years. So that's the yellow facade you can see here. Also, photographs were very hard to find. So, okay, and this is the last slide for the references, and it's just a short compilation of my favorite colorized photographs from Zając Photo. The reason I love these so much is not even for the reference value in terms of this isn't even our time period. These are from the 20s and 30s. But since they've been colorized and there are very expressive scenes from everyday life, you can they humanize people who lived 100 years ago very much, and I love them for that reason. This photograph with the people dancing on a boardwalk near the Vistula River is one of my favorites. Some just street life. I love this one with the patrol with the dogs. It looks like a painting. Some more everyday street scenes. Yeah, I loved these when I was designing things that take place in the background ambiently. So I would be I think this was one of the reasons why I added shoe shiners to the streets of Warsaw. When I saw this, I thought, hell yeah, they used to have them everywhere, right? this is a photo that I love a lot. This is the Vienna railway station from the back. So you look out into the main street. This is from the 30s, right? Which is why neons are there. I just like it a lot. Like I wouldn't think this is Warsaw if the neons weren't in Polish. All right, that's it for the presentation part. So I think we'll have time for a quick Q&A now.
So guys, you get any questions, just raise your hand. Okay, Marek?
I have a question regarding the costs, because this looks like quite costly activities. And does it make sense to do this extensive research? How many people did it take to do that research? How many time? And do you think it like pay off, or?
The second, how many?
How many people and
how many people?
time?
Okay, so our level design team, I think at the height was about 5 to 6 people, and to be honest, like it may seem like a lot of effort, but I would say that all artists, like people who work with visual stuff, maybe others as well, can attest that if you're trying to create something, the first thing you want to go and do is find references, right? So that you're not working with like stuff in your head, but you have it down on paper. And it's that much easier if you're working with a building that really exists, is that you need to find these places. Like you don't want to build the building from scratch wondering, hey, how was this built? Like just copy the stuff that's already there, right? Especially if you're making a game set in a historical time and place, right? So then you should be faithful, I think, because one of the things that people really liked about the Thaumaturge was the setting. They said it's very unique. It's something that they haven't seen before, and a lot of people say that Warsaw really like feels like a real place. So I think that it did pay off. We did our best to bring it to life and to create it authentically to what it was. And it wasn't like I said. It's like this is, I would say, working with references is very standard for video games and other visual media as well. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily that expensive. Like if I'm working on a location, I would say maybe this searching or doing research and like planning out stuff in my head, like, okay, I like this detail of the building here, I want to put it in there. That may be like 1 day of work, 2 days of work. It depends on, of course, the scale of the thing we're working on right now.
Okay, and if you have to guess, how many man-months were spent on the research?
I can't.
Just some guess.
I really can't say. It's difficult. But there are some people who really appreciate this detail. One of my favorite things after the premiere of the game, there is, I won't remember the name right now, but there is this, I think he's a historian of architecture, or maybe just an architect. He has a blog about architecture in video games. And I don't have a picture of it in the presentation because it's a fictional building, but the main protagonist's family home in Warsaw, it's this townhouse, this manor. The guy actually went and costed the building. Like he looked at everything, the size, like the state it's in, the interior design, everything. And he actually came up with like a number of for how much the building would cost to make today. So like, yeah, some people really do pay attention to the details. And he said it's like 38 million złotych, which is, I think, almost 7.5 million euro or more, something like that. That's what he said, that or more.
That guy could like fund your game. Did this effort help to settle the deal with the 11 bits, maybe?
Sorry, could you speak?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Did this effort maybe help to seal the deal with the 11-bit?
Oh, I can't really say. I think 11-bit were on board with us before we got so deep into building the streets of Warsaw. So I don't think so, but I'm not the person to ask because the game was in production for longer than I've been with the company. So I've worked on it for like 2.5 years, but the game was in production before that. So I really can't say.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Okay, I have maybe two-part question. First of all, like how many unique assets approximately were like created for all the architecture, streets, and so on, especially exteriors?
I have no idea.
Like ballpark, like
Thousands.
10,000 or-
Thousands.
yeah.
Thousands. Because buildings, the thing is buildings, when you, this is standard like workflow for, I think every video game out there. When you're making a building exterior or interior, you don't go and model the whole thing as one model. You get modular assets, right? And then you put it together kind of like Legos, I guess. So if we want to say unique assets, it's going to be thousands upon thousands.
So you didn't compromise, like make some more modular assets, but made unique assets when the architecture like demanded it.
It really depends, because when you're working with landmarks, right? There's this term in the industry called hero assets. Whew. Okay, so there's this thing called hero assets, and these are assets that will be displayed very prominently and are important in either a location or a narrative. So way more effort will be put into them, and sometimes they will be made especially to order. So we did have some of those as well, and some of them were in the presentation. So yeah, you could say that we didn't compromise, right? If the game demanded it, we did go, you know, above and beyond to deliver a more authentic location.
Okay, and the last question, you did quite extensive research and everything, and I guess collecting data, pictures, and so on, as you mentioned. Was there some kind of cooperation with like government or cultural entities, and so like something to save for the future when once you did it, so it did not to be?
From what I know, not architecture specifically, but for instance, when we were working with, let's say, elements of Jewish culture, that I know for certain, when working with elements of Jewish culture, because the Thaumaturge gets into like the cosmopolitan nature of the city at the time, so you meet all these different groups of people who lived there. So when we designed like the Jewish community in Warsaw, I know that that was consulted for sure.
What were the most challenging locations to bring to life, to work without the references to how it was when it was there?
But which word did you use? What were the what locations?
The most challenging.
Oh, challenging. Okay. I would say that for, okay, challenging. Historically speaking, like, can you hear me okay? 'Cause, yeah, okay. So if we're talking. Hello, hello. All right, we're back. Okay, so I think for me, the most difficult one would have been the concert hall in the Swiss Valley, just because I had these two pictures to go off of. I was actually the one who made the interior there, not the exterior. So I'd say that one was the most challenging for me in terms of the lack of references, especially like decor, right? So, you know, go make a concert hall, okay, but I need details, you know? I'm not going to leave like a bare wall. I need to, you know, find out how these places were decorated. So yeah, I'd say that was one of the most challenging places. I had to, you know, go and look up more architecture from the era and see like, okay, how did these classicist wall panels look, right? Stuff like that, you know? All right. Is time up? All right. I'm sorry. If anybody needs me, I'm still going to be around the convention and probably in the tent next door. Are we going to have the booth? Yes. Okay, we're going to have the booth where you can see and play the Thaumaturge, so I'll be there for the next hour. If you have any more questions, we can talk there. Thank you very much.